There's always going to be these arguments of mainstream and underground, and you know, is it grime, is it garage, is it drill, is it this? And to me, it's all hip hop. It's all black expression.
The official organization of the music industry in France started taking into account the plays in streaming, and it changed everything for rap.
2016, the new wave of rap became a thing, but it wasn't taken as seriously as the old school stuff that came to be after restoration of independence in Estonia.
Rap and hip hop is still looked down upon by the older generation.
You know, everyone has an opinion about these things, right? So the arguments on the internet and on social media are kind of as important as these big roles, right?
Independent journalism, that's a big issue in France now.
The young culture has become so visual that to me it seems that this might be the last years of radio being important for them, I think.
Hip-hop journalism isn't a genre of journalism, it's more of a new breed of podcasts and a way of using social media just as much as being on TV and radio.
Hi everybody, because of this wonderful guest we will do this in English, so I think everybody is comfortable with this. First of all, my name is Niko BACKSPIN, hip-hop journalist from Germany. I'm doing this stuff for 20 years now. I'm the owner of the BACKSPIN hip-hop magazine. We published printed magazines for 20-something years. The last printed issue was in 2016. Then we had to cancel, and it's good to have guys like Epic Zero here. He's coming from London, and he's still doing printed hip-hop magazines. And of course, this is one of the reasons why he's here. So please give an applause for Epic Zero. I love rap from France. I do it in that direction, sorry for that, but it's cool. And I don't understand any words, and even because I had French in school for 7 years. And it was even tough to get in touch and contact with people from France to know something about the scene there, even from Germany, because it's so close, it's ridiculous at the end. But it's good to have you here, that we can talk about the scene there. Raphael, please do an applause.
Hi. Thank you.
I don't know anything about hip-hop in Estonia. And we have to learn, I guess, because even with the countries France and the UK, it's quite obvious, because we see a lot of artists all over the world, maybe. How is it in Estonia? That's the question we want to be answered by Merit. Thank you to have you here. And at the end, Denmark is very close to Germany. Of course, there's a little bit of a language gap, but at the end, I think the scene is good connected to Germany. And but again, I still don't know nothing about the journalism side of hip-hop in Denmark, and therefore we have Pelle here, and he will answer some questions, I'm sure. Please don't applaud. My problem is I have to ask one question and I have to get 4 answers, so we have to find a way to make it short. Go explain yourself and your work, maybe. As you start there, Pelle. Tell me something about why you became a journalist and a hip-hop journalist.
I'm a huge music nerd, first of all, way before me being a so-called journalist. So actually I'm this huge music nerd from the outskirts of Denmark. I was the only guy listening to music in my class, in my village. And when I started going out, there weren't any places that were actually playing music or playing rap, especially. So I started doing my own parties. And then, because there wasn't any DJs, I had to start DJing myself. I DJed the first party on 2 DVD machines because I couldn't afford like a real setup. So my mom's DVD machine and my own, but it worked out. Then I ended up in Copenhagen and just wanted to work with music in any way possible. So I worked at labels and with management and DJing, and I thought if I gotta have a career in this world, I need to work at a record label and need to know what a hit sounds like, because hits make the music world go round. And every time I turned on the radio, I didn't get any of it. I was like, this is the worst music ever. So I thought if I gotta learn what a hit is and how to identify a hit song, I have to work on the radio to learn that. So I actually searched for an internship at it's called the P3, it's like the BBC Radio 1 in Denmark. And I got it, and all I wanted to know was what does a hit sound like, and then I wanted to go back to the music business so I could make money off that and have a career. But then I got stuck on the radio because at the same time, this huge new wave of rap music, both internationally and in Denmark, blew up. Internationally, it was like ASAP Mob, Future, stuff like that. And in Denmark, we had a couple of Cruz as well that blew up through the internet. And they were like, we know that this is happening, but we don't know what to do with it. Maybe can you do a radio show about it? And that's like 12 years ago now, and I've been doing pretty much that ever since. So I don't have a journalistic education. I'm just a huge nerd that's really passionate about music and especially rap music. So and that got me where I am today.
Long story short, it's just a hip-hop way you're doing it, right?
Yes.
Merit, how about you?
Well, pretty much just the same way as this guy. I was such a big music nerd at school. I think I was the only one who actually like constantly looked out for new stuff, and people were borrowing my MP3 players every year, all the time. And but the music journalism, I'm not a hip-hop journalist per se, I have to say that. But I actually tried to avoid becoming one at first when I came from uni, doing internship at Studying Public Broadcasting. I tried to like get into politics and foreign policy and stuff like that. But I just ended up on Culture Portal, and it just logically went that way that I started making interviews because I have like these insights that actually help me to do interesting stuff, and people start to notice it. And then just like naturally it happened that when something new came up, people contacted me and offered to talk about or write about this. And it just came my thing a few years ago. And I now see that I can't avoid this. I have to keep doing it because I don't know. It actually, you see the fruits of your labor when doing that.
Yeah.
I didn't see that with this politics stuff. Yeah.
It's also a bit like passion.
Yeah. Time.
Yeah. I think it is passion that everybody of us has for the music and for the work. But I think in France, there are some role models who did that in the past already. So what was the reason why you are here and being a hip-hop journalist?
Yeah, when I was in middle school and then in high school, I was getting more and more into rap music, as much French as much English. And I was reading some magazines, because in France we had some press during the 90s and then 2000s. And as more I was reading it, as more I was like, this is what I want to do. So yeah, I started writing when I was in college, so it was at the, I would say 2005, 2006 or something like that. But I wanted to secure the bag, so I did a journalism school at some point. I was not sure that music journalism will get me somewhere, so I preferred doing that. And I worked from, I would say like 5 years in a local television, so I was doing like politics and culture and sports and a lot of stuff, but writing on rap music on the side. And at some point, it was like 5 years ago, I was getting closer to my 30s, and I was like, I should do what I want to do, what I dream about. So I left my job, and because I made some contacts around the media world in rap in France, and so I started writing, doing a podcast, doing some documentaries, working with that's funny because we have public broadcast here, and that's the same thing for me. I'm working with French public broadcast. It's the equivalent to BBC One as well. It's called Move in France, and yeah, doing some stuff with them. Then with some other medias, interviews and documentaries and articles. And here I am, invited in Germany. So I'm really glad to be here.
It's good to have you here because I think the French market is even one of the biggest in Europe. I think also can inspire other countries like they did in Germany. Obvious when we talk about the #1 artist in Germany so far. As I explained, you were the guy who's still doing printed magazines. So how long you doing this? Cancel this question. But tell me something about your story, because I think it's more. What is it? Is it you're more a hip hop guy than a journalist, right?
Yeah, so I come in a kind of different route to you guys. I'm an MC and a filmmaker, a multidisciplinary artist, I try to call myself now. So I've been spitting since I was like sort of 12, 13 years old. And then sort of my evolution as an MC and as an artist, the kind of stuff I do is quite political and quite heavy, and especially at that time it was quite difficult to get support, given the type of stuff I was doing. There's a very British way of approaching these things that they kind of let one or two people in the door, so the Lokis and the Akalas force their way through, and then it's kind of like, oh, someone's already doing that, we don't need any more perspectives on this, you know. And so I met the founders, my co-founders of Hip Hop around sort of 2012, 13, and they had this idea to start a publication where we're like, you know what, we're going to be entirely independent, very much based in the sort of grassroots community activism that we're all involved in, and we're quite fierce in our independence. So we don't tend to follow trends. We don't tend to. We're not dependent on advertising. We're actually a registered charity, and a lot of the community organizations we work with form this kind of big community of people who just have things they want to say about the scene and about the world and about the things that we do. And I Am Hip Hop became this sort of medium or conduit for those things to be able to happen. And so it actually started, the original organization was to give people coming out of prison an opportunity to get some kind of employment, or to be able to like use their skills in ways that they felt were valuable. And so like one of our early covers was drawn by one of the people we work with, who was an amazing activist called Jay, who'd done some time come out, and we put him on the cover. And so this is sort of finding a balance between these things is what we try to do. And one way that we do that is essentially doing what we want. And so even though people are saying this thing is dead, for us it's like, no, there's something about that feel, that smell, you know, having it in your hands. We all kind of fell in love with that. And so Rishma, especially like the sort of driving force behind what we do, is adamant that we will try and do one of these at least once a year.
So you're representing underground of hip hop, obviously. But as I start now the other way around, because here are the two big countries and we have to talk about the situation there, because maybe people know how big hip hop in the UK is. And of course, I was blown away this morning when I saw the new Stormzy video. Right. Thank you for that. So for Stormzy, if you see it this year. But can you, from your point of view, can you describe the situation of hip hop in general in the market in the UK?
I think honestly, we're going through we're in the midst of the golden era right now, right? And I hope it continues for longer. I think one thing that I noticed around the time when I was sort of really coming up was, you look at somewhere like France, right? And from, you know, as what's often described as like the second place that hip hop really rooted, right? Was or maybe the first place outside of the US, maybe even outside of New York, right? There's that kind of defense of French hip hop culture by other forms of media and by radio, for example, right? And I think seeing that from the UK, I never felt like that was the case. Everything was driven by America, and even, you know, with the garage scene, really, you know, in the sort of early 2000s, as a perfect example, they would sign people who were already killing it and try to turn them into a fake version of an American artist or an R&B singer or whoever else, right? And that battle constantly with sort of mainstream trends was something that so many artists sort of almost, I'd say they lost their careers because of this, right? They lost all the opportunities that should have been theirs, right? Mm. And then when you start to see this shift, when, for me, it was sort of around sort of 2013, 2014, when grime really started to be appreciated more in the mainstream. It's to do very much with the industry and, you know, the fact that you don't need a label in the same way that you would have done before. The way people like Skepta and everybody else were just, you know, really taking hold of their lives, you know what I mean, and of their careers, created an opportunity now where people are like, right, not only does this stuff exist and it's here and it's sort of got these pockets around the world of people who appreciate it, now it's global, you know, and with the mix of Afro beats as well, people like Titi Strider, you know, really like making them links early on, people can't not hear this now, right? And then the influence it's had on New York and, you know, all over the world, and everyone, the way that the scene is taken up now is absolutely beautiful to see. And you know, there's always going to be these arguments of mainstream and underground, and you know, is it grime, is it garage, is it drill, is it this? And to me, it's all hip hop. It's all black expression. You know what I mean? And black influenced expression. So to me, it's a great time for UK hip hop, or however you want to describe these genres. You know.
The last thing was very important for me. That is, everything of this is hip hop. In France, I think it became more pop from time to time. How would you describe the situation?
You were talking about the golden era in the UK. It's true that in France we had already a golden era at the end of the 90s and the beginning of year 2000. And since 2016, there was a little shift in the music industry in France, because the official organization of the music industry in France started taking into account the plays in streaming. And it changed everything for rap. It was like a common sense knowledge that rap was heavily listened in France by a lot of people, not only young people, because rap music and hip hop have been in France since the 80s. So people are going to grow old with hip hop. But suddenly, like, we had numbers, we had facts that yes, hip hop music in France is a force really into the music industry. So suddenly everything changed. It created a virtuous circle that let a lot of things flourish in the ecosystem for rap. And so suddenly you had more rappers signed to labels. You had more opportunities for rappers to build their own labels. You had new media created. With the help of the internet, of course, since a few years ago. So yeah, since I would say since 6-7 years, it's a really new era for rap. As you said, the genre has never been as much diverse as it is today, because of many influences from electronic music, from past French type of music, from Afro-Caribbean musics as well, because we have a lot of people who are descendants from immigration from Africa, from the West Indies. So yeah, it's really flourishing right now in France. And as you said, we have like pop success in France. Like I think last year, on the 20 top-selling artists in France, like half of them were rappers or rap-affiliated artists. So yeah, it's really big now in France. Yeah,
that's very interesting. Matt, you said you're not only a hip-hop journalist. Is it because the scene is very small in Estonia, or what is the reason? Because maybe your personal circumstances, but at the end, tell us something about hip-hop in Estonia.
To give you the grasp how small Estonia is, I went to the same class with Tommy Cash.
Okay, cool.
You know all of him, yeah?
I know of him,
yeah.
Sorry. Guy, yeah. Check his videos out.
Say the question again, please.
Something about the situation of hip-hop in Estonia.
Yeah, I think it became a thing like in 2016, but at first it wasn't taken as... I think the new wave of rap music was 2016, the new wave of rap became a thing, but it wasn't taken as seriously as the old school stuff that came to be after restoration of independence in Estonia. Mm. But then we had this older music journalist who's almost 50 now, and he really got into this new stuff. And I think he worked like 2 years doing interviews and stuff with them. So he almost became like a cult man in a way. So young rappers sending him demos and stuff, and him promoting them. So after a couple of years of work, like big labels actually started to see these artists, and fast forward to 2022, we actually have many rappers that don't need to put out much work to actually get a good label deal, and they are like now collaborating with our pop artists. Like the genres are really shifting. It's not rap anymore, really. Yeah, and like genre-wise, we actually had this tendency towards emo, SoundCloud rap, I would say.
Okay.
Like when it first came to be. but now it has become more of this. I don't know. There has been some influence from rock music, I would say, and very poppy stuff. Yeah, the picture is very complicated, and I have to say that there was some clash between the old school and new school at some point. Like
it's like the same, like everywhere. I would say.
Yeah, like some old rappers that have put out records this year in Estonia have like they have in their songs these little like hints about the new stuff being trash and stuff. But then again, there are dudes that actually appreciate it and try to go with the flow, and they don't give up their own old style of rap, but they like introduce it to their own work, like via collaborations and stuff. So yeah, it's hard to put that into summary, but
yeah, I know.
Maybe it gives us something to you.
Yeah, I give you one more question. What about success? All of these guys are #1 in the charts, even the young and the old artists?
With the old, it depends. We have actually our biggest act is a rap group. Well, they are, like, in my opinion, they are becoming quite cheesy, like doing this kind of Limp Bizkit stuff. I don't know. It has become weird. It started as like more underground stuff, but yeah, it became so big that now they have to like please kind of everyone who listens to music. But yeah, mainly rappers doing collaborations with pop artists, I would say, or the leaders in the board. Yeah,
I've got a lot of questions now, but we have to go forward to you, Pelle. Please.
Well, it's pretty much the same picture in the other countries. It's super duper diverse. We have,
okay, this is a fast answer now.
Yeah, but we have like it's not hip hop anymore. It's rap. Because we do have hip hop, we do have rappers who live the culture and bring turntables on stage and stuff. But the rap genre as a whole is you have French infused rap, you have electronic rap. But the most exciting thing right now is that more of the evolution of the sound, it is the evolution of the characters. Because to me, rap has always been exciting, not only because of the music, but because of the crazy characters in the rap world. It's like watching superheroes getting their cape on, and then they become like this extra crazy version of themselves. And today you can pretty much do everything in Danish rap. We've been so far behind when it comes to female rap, but now one of the biggest stars is a female rapper called Tessa, who got big through Instagram, and now she's huge. And chart-wise, commercially, rap is pretty much holding the top 5 places on albums and on singles in Denmark, like all of the time. It's just like different friends who actually just switches places on the hit lists. But even though they dominate commercially, it's not getting the credit that it would have gotten if it were rock bands, for example. Rap and hip hop is still looked down upon by the older generation, but that's going to change because those people didn't have the same chance to actually understand this genre, and now we have a new generation who's grown up with it. And because of the diversity, we're also in a golden age in all different kinds of ways.
And the journalistic part of hip hop has a big role in past, even to spread the message of hip hop all over the world, even all over the country. How big? Let's start there again. How big is hip hop journalism in Denmark?
Well, Denmark
can influence with your show.
Yeah.
People?
I can, but I think radio and journalism in general isn't nearly as important as it was 10 years ago and even more 20 years ago, because now you have the internet. So no rapper is dependent on being on the radio to become a success. It's nice for them to be on the radio, and it'll give them a bigger crowd. But now through YouTube and of course the quality of the music, they can actually blow up without radio or without the big media outlets. As long as you got an Instagram profile and you're actually a nice artist, you can blow up. With that being said, we do have hip hop shows, but most of those aren't traditional music shows. They try to follow the genre, so it's more loose. It's more of a conversation than it's an interview. Pretty much inspired by what's happening in the US, where all of the big podcasts and big radio shows in hip hop are more of like a bunch of friends shouting at each other. We have that as well, and then we have like these podcasts that's really well produced with music and samples, and those are pretty big as well. So hip hop journalism isn't a genre of journalism. It's more of a new breed of podcasts and a way of using social media just as much as being on TV and radio.
Okay, how is it in Estonia? And do you see something like a scene?
Yeah, if I would say that rap journalism, hip-hop journalism doesn't exist in Estonia per se. We just have music journalists that do it. But yeah, we have like two, I would say we have two journalists who are more focused on doing this. We have Radio 2 that has a full day focused on hip-hop and rap. And that's basically it. But yeah, the importance of journalism regarding this. I was talking with my colleague from the radio, and he said that actually for young rap artists, the radio is still important, although they can do the work via social media, of course. But it kind of has this still has this value that you need to be played on the radio first, and then you can like build upon it like via social media. But yeah, the young culture has become so visual that to me it seems like this might be the last years of radio being important for them. I think it's more about like building your own image. Like that seems to be more important than being played on the national radio, maybe. The other way around, I would say in France with Bouscapé, you have something. This is even, it was a hip hop magazine in the past.
Yeah,
it's still something like that, but it's even more. What is it? Is a meme or a content hub?
Yeah, exactly. That's maybe where we can draw the line in France and maybe in other countries. Like we have media content for the promotion of artists when they are releasing an album, something like that. Is rap journalism still alive? I don't know. Like if you think about journalism as deep interviews, reviews when you can be negative about an album, like independent journalism, that's a big issue in France now because, like I said, since 2016 and this virtuous circle, it led more money to come, sometimes by labels, sometimes by brands who are putting more money into this young culture to have customers. So they are going to hip-hop media and artists to try to collaborate, also, to put it simply. And so it put the question like, are we independent? Are we free to talk about this music that we like as we want to? This is where we can maybe draw the line between media content. In France, it's big. Like you talked about Bouscapé. Bouscapé is really big. I'm working for them on some interviews, and it's really big. But in the same time, I'm working with a website that exists since 22 years. It's called l'Abécédaire du son. It's really like independent. We don't have a business model. We are just driven listeners. We want to talk about music the way we were. So sometimes it can create some conflicts with some rappers. We have some emails, some calls like, why are you talking about our music like that? Yeah, because we can. That's the main function of a journalist and a media.
But you see, like, let me ask you a question. Is it then the problem that this is maybe the last call you get from this guy?
No, it
okay,
doesn't.
Cool.
Yeah. But,
good to know. Good to know.
So just on my case, it's really good to be in both worlds. Like I can do stuff on the media content that are within the ecosystem of the rap industry, and sometimes to do more independent, I would say, stuff. Yeah.
Epix, we know you're keeping it real, but can you tell us something about the shiny side of hip hop journalism in the UK. Is there somebody who is doing big hip-hop journalism, and are there magazines?
I think the way we're defining it here is sort of quite fluid, right? So it's, you know, with the success, there's always going to be these huge platforms, right? So people like ZZ Mills and people like Dotty does stuff with like Apple Music and stuff like that. So there's huge platforms now for UK. Well, you know, if we're going to define grime, drill, all this black expression as hip hop, then you know, a lot of the biggest platforms for even stuff like videos and whatever else came out of the lack of support from mainstream radio and mainstream journalism, right? And so the SBTVs and the grime dailies and the link ups, they were this way of doing things, almost like a precursor to the big podcast things that have blown up recently, right? And so I think that kind of, there's a lot written about it actually, and sort of even in academia now, how things like that were and are inherent in grime and what then became like drill and UK rap culture, right? In that like stuff like people swapping MP3s with the infrared on their phone, right? Because that's what it was, that's what is grime, that's what is UK rap, right? And so that kind of alternative to the mainstream built itself and then became the mainstream, or you know, the Apple Musics and the Amazons came to take a part of that and endorse things, right? Which is how these things tend to go. And so I think there is great work being done by a lot of those people because they have the time, the resources to be able to do it, and they have access to all of these huge artists, and will continue to have access to those huge artists because they help to build them, you know. And I think there's so many different tiers of this. From the Apple Musics and the Amazons down to sort of still massively independent YouTube channels or websites or platforms that then have gone on to become podcasts and whatever else, right down to, you know, to sort of people just making videos about, you know, everyone has an opinion about these things, right? And so the kind of the arguments on the internet and on social media are kind of as important as these big roles, right? And then for someone like us, we just kind of pick the role we want to play, you know, and so we don't only support underground artists. If we're feeling like this Stormzy thing, I saw that because someone in the I Am Hip Hop WhatsApp group was like, you guys need to see this, and it's like, you need to see it before you come on this panel because you need to talk about this, right? And so, like, you know, from Stormzy down to people who you guys would never know, we support if we feel it, you know, and you're feeling it. Of course, bro. Okay. Like, it's, you know, like, bro, like, you know, the scene with the umbrellas, right? Yeah. That's our history. Yeah. That's the history of our culture, and it's taken until now to have that really recognized, and someone in a position to be able to make something like that, to be like, this is a lineage, and give it that respect, and people respect him and what he's doing enough all over the world to be like, okay, now we should be not just paying attention to whoever's popping at the moment, but there's this depth of back catalogue of history that needs to be going picked up and respected, you know? I have so many questions and not that time, so I have to figure out what's the best for now. But I think let's talk about Stormzy and his position, and then please tell me if there's somebody like him in your countries, because from my point of view, he's #1 in the UK, coming from rap, from hip hop, and he's so political, and he's with both feet. He's so in the middle of the pop culture in the UK. How is it maybe in Estonia and Denmark? Do you see somebody like this, or is it more about #1 singles, more the pop, more about being a musician, or is it some guy who's influencing like Stormzy?
I think the best artists can pretty much speak on everything as long as it seems trustworthy, as long as it seems legit. The biggest name in Denmark, he's huge, and he actually moved to Portugal because he couldn't live in Denmark because he's so big now that but he can talk about like the neighborhood that he's from and the gangs and stuff like that. That's the place he's coming from. But he's also doing love songs, and he's also doing political songs. But as long as it seems as it's coming from him, he can pretty much do whatever, and he can start a political discussion. But he can also make a so-called commercial #1 hit because people believe that it's him. But I think it's a choice for the artist to actually use their platform as such, because if you're not interested in politics and you have a huge platform, I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to suddenly start using your platform politically, because you're going to end up doing something that you can't really defend or elaborate on. So with great fame and a huge audience comes great responsibility, and if you want to use that politically, you can. But it's not like there's a huge political music scene in Denmark, even though the musicians are some of the most politically characters in Denmark. But I don't think we necessarily has a Stormzy or a Kendrick in Denmark when it comes to the subjects, maybe musically. But we definitely do have some stars that are as big in Denmark as Stormzy is in the UK. And Stormzy as well is huge in Denmark. I see him sell out a 15,000 people venue. Him and his DJ, like he's so he's huge as well in Denmark, and people really feel his lyrics like they do Kendrick and all the political music as well.
Can I just add to that quickly?
Yeah.
Because just on that, I think what you know, people can feel however they feel about his success or what he does or these other elements of what he's doing, but the fact that he can be all around the world selling out shows like this. And then last Saturday, he was down at a protest after a brother called Chris Carver was murdered by the police in London a couple of weeks ago, who's an MC in his own right, shot through the windscreen of his car, a single shot without any conversation, didn't have a gun on him, right? And there's years and, you know, all these artists who people expect to be down at these things who might not be there or might not have time or doing other things, and he's there, right? Always saying something, Grenfell, saying something, doing something, and it's like, you know, even if someone was to not like his music, I think it's that character that shines through, right? And you see it in sort of as many different opportunities as he can. He represents the culture fully.
And I think that's the great thing about rap and rappers. It is that they pretty much walk the talk, and that's why they are also sometimes more exciting than other types of artists, because they talk in a pretty relatable way about the life that they live. Even though I can relate to the life, I still want to hear about it, and I still want to see them participate in a demonstration, if that's the type of rapper we're talking about, or want to see them 5 a.m. at a club, if that's the type of rapper that we're talking about. But that's the thing that's fascinating about some of these guys. You have the sense that these are real people talking about real things that they actually go through, whether it be the one thing or the other. And that's what caught me about rap music, and that's the thing that I also want to explain to the listeners of my radio show, because when I do radio, I do it to the whole of the country, like not only the rap fans. So the biggest thing I can do is to actually explain why they use these words. What is this song really about? To people that do not understand these different codes and references, because that's the way that this music is actually coming out to other people than the guys who already know about it. And I think that's the biggest achievement I, as a journalist, can do. Pass something on that I appreciate to someone that actually learned how to appreciate it, whether it be the Stormzy's or the 50 Cents.
Sorry, maybe I missed it at the beginning. What was the name of the artist you were talking about at the beginning?
He's called the Gilly.
The Gilly?
Yeah, Gilly. Gilli.
And he's now living in Portugal.
Named after Giangelo from a gangster movie that I can't remember. Blood In, Blood Out.
Ah, okay.
Because he always walked around saying "Orale," so he started getting the nickname Giangelo, which became Gilly, and he's huge. Like it's crazy.
It's interesting that maybe when we talk about France, we'll also have some same guys. We come to you later about when they're becoming big and kind of role models. They're coming from the projects. So I would say it's the same in the UK at the end. How is it in Estonia? Do you have somebody like, let's take Stormzy for example, a role model like this for rap, hip hop in your country?
I would say not really, since the market is very small. I think the superstars won't take the risks. I think regarding political stuff, you have to really dig deep into the words, because they don't give like very straightforward references to stuff happening like in a political sense. And I actually remember that with Tommy Cash, like our international star, he's from Ukraine, like he's half Ukrainian. And there was this really big anticipation that he would say something about the war, but he didn't. Because, well, I kind of understand it. It would have been like huge risk to him, like because there are a lot of Russians that respect him as well. and that would have created some conflict between his Russian fans and himself, I think. And I still like haven't thought this through. Like, should an artist, like a big artist, be political? Like, maybe if you actually are an entertainer, you let others perceive yourself as that. Maybe you shouldn't get into this stuff, because I think he actually doesn't understand that well as well, because I know him.
In France, we have a different and special situation, I would say, and there are a lot of huge artists during the last 20 years, even that I know, and maybe their position. But how is the situation now? Is Booba still on the map, or is he one of the old guys?
Booba is still on the map, sometimes for the bad reason, but
yeah, got it. Starting to do fights, for example.
Yeah.
But honestly, who's the number one right now? What would you say?
We have a fistful of number ones in France.
That's the same like here.
Yeah. So it's hard to answer this question. If we go back to the example of Stormzy, I can think of one person. He's called Nekfeu. He's a Parisian rapper. Yeah. And like a few years ago, we had a massive social movement in France with a lot of demonstrations in the streets of Paris, like every weekends, like everyone know. And it was called the Gilets jaunes, like the yellow jackets, you know, the security jackets that you have in the car. And this guy who is selling millions of records came more or less anonymously, in the street with his hood on, and he manifested he protested with other people. So I would say this guy in particular talks about the far right that we have in France, problems about all these politics, speech about immigration and hatred against foreign people. So yeah, he tackles these kind of subjects. But as French rap becomes more and more pop, the political subjects tends to be less and less tackles in the music. I would say for the top sellers artists. Sometimes you can have a line or two on the police brutality, but when it comes really to politics like far right and everything, less and less. You have to go deeper in the underground to have like strong positions on these subjects.
In Denmark, I don't think we have a genre called political rap. Sometimes rappers do make empowering songs. For example, the new female rap star we have, she has a lot of songs about the women taking control, but it doesn't sound like a political song. But of course, there's elements of politics in it, or you could say values in it. But political rap as a genre doesn't really exist, and even if it does, no one listens to it. To me, it's more important that actually the big artists can say something that they mean and put the power behind it, but it doesn't have to be a political song. And she's a huge star because of her ability to talk about some of these things without and still making a song that you can play on the club. Like Beyonce is really great at like Run the World. You can call that a political song, but you could also call that a club banger. And I think the talent of being able to do both is what makes some of these artists really great. And also making them actually infuse and inspire people that doesn't necessarily look at themselves as political active. So that's when I think that's the greatest political movement you can actually do as an artist, as a commercial artist.
I just wanted to add to that because I really don't like these boxes they try to put different types of artists in, right? This idea of like political rap, like it's so reductive, right? And I think when you have we have so many artists in the UK, someone like Dave, for example, right? No way is that guy should be labeled as a political. You look at the track, tracks like Black, right? And it's like, even I'll go so far as even to say someone like Digga D, right? Think what you think about his music, but the fact that this guy's having to go through what he's going through, having to inform police before he puts music out, and again, like, there'll be a big debate about all these things and the stuff that surrounds it, but the fact that he is doing what he's doing directly in disregard of what the state is trying to do to him and his music and his people, and that's so integrally connected to the gang matrix and to the prison industrial complex in the UK and around the world, right? And so even if he's not actively saying, okay, I'm going to do this to go against these things, through the act of doing, he's doing it, right? He's, and the conversations that are being had in all different, from the block to universities to parliament, even about these things. Even if he's not, even if he's not coming to be like, I'm a political rapper, I'm doing these things, and all the other people who are connected to those things, those are acts of political resistance in some form, right? And so, yeah, I think that is the way that we try to function in viewing things in these ways, right? And having those really, really important conversations.
I'm really running out of time now. That's really disappointing because I have so many questions left, even on my list. Do we have to talk about this maybe in another form? I would love to do podcasts with all of you guys talking about really, we have to figure this out. At the end, I would love to give you the chance to ask a question. If you want, you can think about it. Maybe one question is possible if somebody got one. If not, let's talk about the future. At the end, one sentence, maybe 2, 3. Okay, got it. But about your personal idea of music, hip-hop journalism in your country. Because in Germany, we had the situation that 2 old-fashioned hip-hop magazines were dying in the last weeks. They're all under the same company, and there are some reasons why, but we cut that off. They were dying, so it was bad news. Tell me something about hip-hop journalism in your country. Is there a future for this?
Of course.
Thank you. Period. The next one. How would you describe in France?
There is a future as long as there is a passion-driven, driving stuff behind it. Like just not only for the numbers, but only for, also for everything that this music inspires. And if journalism can be an echo for that, I think it will be good.
Marit, is there a fight for you to music journalism, or even if radio is not that thing in the future?
I think once people start to see music journalism as cool again, because music journalism doesn't seem cool in Estonia, at least.
Oh, really?
To me, it seems.
She's cool, right?
Then it will live, I think, yeah.
So.
Well, I'm pretty sure that it's going to stay forever.
Okay,
like all types of journalism, but it's going to be in different form. Like a couple of years ago, it might be on paper. Now it'd be on the internet and on YouTube, and I guess in 10 years it might be in the metaverse. I don't know. It changes maybe the medium, but the content will always be there, and the need for content, not only when it comes to hip-hop journalism, but also just political journalism, will always be there, but it's going to change form, obviously.
It's funny because maybe, I don't know how it is in your countries, but in Germany, we have now on Twitch one of the biggest hip-hop, let me say, journalistic outlets. Yeah. It's more about beef and gossip at the end, because it's short-term, but it is there, and so I think it will be evolution. There will be an evolution of hip-hop journalism in all of these countries, and we have to cut it down now because people are waiting. Thank you for your time. Please give a great round of applause. Thank you for everything, and of course, I'm sure these guys will answer some questions later. And enjoy the rest of the festival now. Thank you.
Backspin.